Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining the Webex Developer webinar for July. So my name is Phil Belanti. I'm from the Webex Developer Evangelism team. Today's webinar is going to be all about the Converged Webex Developer Portal. That's the redesign that we did. That's at developer.webex.com. So today I'm going to be presenting with our esteemed leader of developer evangelism, Adam Weeks. And we also have a special panelist here who will be presenting. That's Webex design leader, Athena Perez. So for this webinar, we're going to be using Slido. We're going to run some polls. We're also going to use Slido for Q&A. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end for that. So if you have any questions, instead of putting it inside the chat of Webex, go ahead and put it in Slido. We made Slido app available inside the Webex client, but if you prefer to join from your mobile device, just use the QR code that's shown here. We'd love to hear your feedback, so we encourage everybody to participate in the Slido. With that, let's do our first one. Let's see where you folks are joining the webinar from. Let's see where our people are. I'm joining from the Orlando, Florida area. And it feels like the surface of the sun here. Yeah. Oh, lots of people in Phoenix. In New York City, I think everybody is under a heat dome right now, right?
Yeah, it's been pleasant.
It's pleasant been very, very pleasant.
In the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to escape to Phoenix to
avoid the surface of the sun, as you say.
Yeah. Balmy Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Bangalore. All right, here we go. That's good. Worldwide. All right. We're all over the place here. Vancouver, Tucson, Sao Paulo. All right, we got Brazilians here. Perfect. That's great. So as you can see, we have Webex developers all over the world, and we're all glad to see you here. So let's run through some quick news and updates before I get to the main presentation here. Everything I'm going to mention right now is going to be on our blogs page, and that's developer.webex.com/blog. The first thing I just want to tell you, there are 3 companion articles around the content that's going to be presented here today. It goes over all the aspects of the new Converged developer portal. So at number 1, our leader of developer documentation, John Francis, he formally announces the new Converged Webex developers portal and provides key details and all the changes. And then in number 2, one of our presenters, Athena, she's going to give us like a behind the scenes look. She's going to do a really good in-depth one here today. But this is, again, kind of a good companion piece so you can reinforce your learning. And then in the third one, our senior product manager, Shishadri Mukherjee, introduces the Cisco AI Assistant for Webex developers that we're going to be demoing as part of this webinar so everybody can see how it works live. But if you haven't already, go check out these 3 blogs after the session, kind of drill down on the topics we're presenting here today. But the next one is from another presenter of ours here, Adam Weeks. He published a blog, and this one unravels the enigma that is the Webex API IDs. So in this blog, we discover why these somewhat random strings are base64 encoded, and how they're going to save us from URL encoding headaches. We always see a lot of questions from developers around the way Webex IDs are encoded, how they're used. So this article serves to clear things up. And then finally, Adam, who's been very busy lately, published another blog on building Webex Bring Your Own Virtual Agent or BYOVA apps. Specifically, he shows us a new command line tool that simplifies data source management and refreshes during development. It's going to help your projects keep moving in the right direction. and why the bring your own data source, or BYODS, and the Node.js SDK is still king for production deployments. So that was our quick news and updates for this month. Let's jump right over to our main presentation now. We've got a lot to cover. Again, the topic of this webinar is just a deep dive into the new Webex Developer Portal and AI Assistant. So we're not going to get too technical here. But if you do have questions along the way, we encourage you, please use the slide. For the agenda, I'm going to start by just introducing the portal and talk about the advantages it creates for Webex developers. After I do that, I'll hand it over to Adam, who's going to take us on a live tour of the portal so we can discover all the improvements that's going to make life easier for all of us. And then I'll bring in Athena, and she's going to pull back the curtain on how the new portal was designed, with the reimagined navigational experience, a focus on discoverability, scalability, taxonomy, all that great stuff to create a user-first experience. And then after that, we're going to introduce the new Cisco AI Assistant for Webex developers. We have a live demo on how that works, so you can see some of the things that it can do. And then we'll wrap it up and do some Q&A. So let's do one more Slido poll before we kick things off, just so I can see where, some of the people here have already explored our developer portals. What developer portal have you previously explored? Have you gone to our contact center one? Is that the one you've looked at? Have you looked at developer.webex.com previously? Maybe you've been to both. Maybe none. So if you're just a new user and you're just starting to get things on, that's okay too. I don't know where options 5 and 6 came from. Pay no attention to those.
Sorry, I was gonna answer option 5 too.
No, sorry, that's the wrong answer. Then you get booted from the webinar. Oh, so someone did option 6, so got a bunch of smart Alex here.
Of course.
Okay, so looks like the most people have seen the Webex proper. Okay. But so let's just go ahead and start with the main issue at hand, and that there were 2 separate developer portals for, one for Webex Suite, that's developer.webex.com, and Webex Contact Center platform, developer.webexcx.com. But ultimately, having 2 different interfaces, increased the learning curve for our developers, and led to a fragmented user experience. So another thing is separated portals also reduced cross-product visibility. So for example, Webex Contact Center deployments that also include Webex calling. So before, developers are going to need to build, integrations for each of those products in different places, siloed off from each other. The 2 portals also brought, varying documentation styles and, kind of muddled resources between the 2. So that inconsistency, sometimes led to confusion. So another big issue is the documentation was difficult to navigate, particularly on the Webex Suite side, for messaging, meetings, calling, admin APIs. As our collection of APIs grew, they basically started to get piled on top of each other, and we kind of lost uniform ordering and structure across the different platforms. So this made things just hard to navigate and find things, especially when you're working with different application types. So the navigation interface was basically a long list of like API groupings that developers had to sift through to find the information that they needed. So not only did we need to bring contact center APIs into the mix, we also had to make sure that everything was, more discoverable and, as a whole. So the new Converged Webex Developer Portal at developer.webex.com is the one now. Brings together all of our development resources under a single umbrella. That's allowed developers to explore more options for Webex Contact Center, as well as Suite, messaging, meeting, calling, So again, all in a unified location. The Converged portal includes all the current content from both the Webex Developer Portal and Webex Contact Center portal. So that includes, all the Webex Suite REST APIs, calling, messaging, meetings, compliance, administration REST APIs for both Contact Center and Webex Suite, device REST APIs, SDK documentation, gRPC and Search GraphQL APIs for Webex Contact Center, all the guides, all the long form documentation for both Suite and Contact Center portals are here now. But in addition, the site navigation is now much more flexible and intuitive, where everything is now grouped logically, so it's easily discoverable and digestible. The documentation menu expands to list all of our current documentation areas that are arranged, much like you see here on this tree map. But I also want to highlight that last column. It's a newly created create menu to quickly get to our many integration options for bots, embedded apps, service apps, Instant Connect, our developer sandboxes, and more. So we even improved our search functionality in the top menu, so developers can target and access specific information quickly and easily. But another big update came to our comprehensive try it now functionality in our API documentation. So where we introduced some new enhanced features into the built-in REST client, including support for gRPC and GraphQL search and contact center, we've also added multi-language code examples, for curl, Python, Node.js, that are now provided for all API functionalities in Webex Suite and Contact Center. So additionally, we expanded the configuration options for server, variables, and global headers. So it gives you the increased ability to add required or optional parameters values more easily. But you can even add your own query parameters in this new try it now, as well as custom headers in your request. So much more rich now. But on top of that, there's a much more detailed information available on each API reference page. So we can all better understand what each parameter means on these, and it just makes it easier to learn how to use each API. Another previous point of confusion was where developers could obtain their personal bearer tokens for testing the APIs. And these used to be nested, within our documentation. But just for those who aren't aware, these personal tokens provide a temporary API access. These tokens already have all the Webex application scopes pre-applied. So this allows developers to test the APIs without the need for building an integration or an OAuth 2 grant flow. This is especially helpful when you're working in Postman or another REST client. But so your personal token is now very easy to find. Just by clicking your Webex avatar after you logged into developer.webex.com, it just appears right there. But in addition to the personal access token, you can also now quickly retrieve the OrgID that's associated with the user account, right from that same menu. So this saves the step of having to make an extra API call to retrieve the OrgID or obtaining it manually inside a control hub. So, this is particularly helpful, I know with the contact center APIs, many of which require an OrgID value. So it's great that we can now get both the personal access token and OrgID values right from that top menu. We're also very pleased to announce that the Converged Developer Portal is fully compliant with all Section 508 accessibility guidelines. So inclusive access is very important to Cisco, and that's reflected in the design and improved usability of the new portal. But you can learn more about what this means at section508.gov. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who's going to give us a live tour of the Converged Developer Portal. Adam?
All right.
Show us the
Thank
stuff.
You, Phil.
You're welcome.
Let me get my share going here. I got to move you off the stage.
Okay.
Share. Thank you. All right, you can see my screen okay? No problem.
Looks good here.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Yeah, like Phil said, my name is Adam Weeks. I'm the manager of Webex Developer Evangelism. I've been here with Webex for about 8 or 9 years now. Started my journey with on the Webex widgets team, and then moved to the JS SDK team, and then over here into our developer relations org. We've been through many iterations of our developer portal, and I'm happy to say that this is now my favorite version of it. Seeing these converged portals between the contact center and regular Webex suite. So what I'll just kind of give you a quick little tour here. I'm going to start off with, I'm logged in here as our Webex webinar host. You can see over here for the evangelism webinars. My personal favorite feature that has already made its way back to the portal is, as Phil called out, that token, quickly accessing that token from the header and the OrgID, which is helpful to use on the contact center side. Many of our contact center APIs need that OrgID, and when you're testing things out, it makes things much easier to just copy it straight from here and paste that into our Try It tool. We do want to call out that the integration here, this is a limited time token. If you want any longer access tokens, you do need to create your own integration that will be providing those tokens for yourself. So yeah, they're definitely just used for development and nothing else. And so taking a look here at the header, you see that our header is now kind of split off into the different products that we have. So we have APIs, SDKs, guides, and everything, all associated with the different products that we've got. Other products that kind of span across, like the Webex admin, compliance, and wholesale, have their own sections as well. Just want to go in here. We'll start off with the Webex meetings. Clicked on the wrong thing. So in the Webex meetings area, you see it looks a little bit different here. We've got our guides that you can expand and contract and hide. Over here, we've got our APIs that we can open and close. One of my new favorite features as well is this new quick little search filter that we've got here. So if I want to go in and take a look at, let's see, I want to list meetings. You see, as I was typing, everything filtered and changed here. So now everything I've got that's matching, list meetings through down here. I'm actually going to go into here. Look, I found my list meetings. Probably wasn't the best demo of using meetings as the filter in the meetings area, but we still were able to eliminate some of the APIs. And if you are a Cisco user that's used other Cisco APIs and endpoints that are hosted on DevNet, you'll notice that the Try It tool looks a little familiar to you, and that's because we're all using the same One Cisco API Try It tool here. So we're getting all those functionality that you're used to if you're using the Meraki dashboards for APIs. Same functionality here. You can go in and create your parameters to your requests from your APIs. If you want to make it, I think we can make it a little bit. We can hide it if you don't want to use it, so we can get rid of it. And if you're just focusing on the documentation, I'm going to go in and show you. You can actually just go ahead and place a call to the API. Here, let me maybe move my screen up a little bit more. So I've got our authorization token here automatically being used. It's copying it from our dev portal, so it's going to be the same token that you have here. If you want to test out a different token that you have, maybe your own integration, and use this tool, you can just toggle off and paste it in. I'm going to leave that on, and I'm going to just go ahead and hit run, and hopefully the meeting that we're currently in will show up as one of the items. So yep, here it is. Here's our webinar that we are in right now. And you can even see that the state is in progress. So that is our API tool that you can use. Obviously, you can change the parameters that are being sent. Or if you want to quickly look at the code that's being generated to do that, you can switch over to this code snippets tab. We've got curl. You can do a Python request or Node.js. If they're, we've got that on the meeting side. One other thing I do want to call out on this list is that each of these areas have their own change logs now. So if I drop this down, you can go in here and take a look at the change log. Here's our change log that we've got for the meeting side. We also have all of our different SDKs that we've got for meetings. So, you know, like our web SDK, you can get in here, take a look at as well. Also, I'll switch over from messaging or from meetings over to messaging. On the messaging side, one of our favorite APIs to demo, obviously, is the People API, the Get My Own Details, which is a good way to test out your bearer token, in my opinion, to see if you've got the right bearer token. If you do the people/me endpoint, I'm going to run it, and it's going to show that webinars at webexdevs.com. That's who's logged into the portal. That's who's that token belongs to, and the rest of these. So as you see, I've moved over to the messaging side, but all of the layouts still very similar to the same. We've got our overview. We've got our different guides for our messaging, SDKs, APIs, and changelog. Now, the big part about the convergence is the contact center side. So I actually have a contact center sandbox that I do want to show one of these new features that have been added to the dev portal, and that's that GraphQL search. So on the contact center side, there is a search API for doing that a lot of our partners and customers are using for doing reporting on contact center. So I'm just going to take a look at the search API. I'll show you what it looks like. So we're in search API. You notice it's not a regular REST API here. This is the response. The search is a GraphQL. So it's a different type of API that you provide with a JSON block to format what the data looks like when you're being returned. So it's not a standard version. It is a way of customizing the output. A lot of people are using it just to see the data that they need and not have to worry about anything extra in the response. It reduces the amount of traffic that's going across your network and the amount of time these searches take if you really filter out some of these things. I'm going to show a quick demo, and this is copied directly from our Webex samples repo. So we've got our GitHub Webex samples, and we have a bunch of contact center API samples. In this GraphQL samples area, I'm going to take some of the code and I'm going to paste it in to here. And I'll show you what we're doing. And we're going to go and cross our fingers for the demo gods that I pasted this JSON correctly. I'm going to hit try out. Do want to activate and use my personal access token. You see it's automatically filled by OrgID here, but if it didn't, I can grab it from the header. So I'm going to paste this code, this long JSON block. What I'm doing is I'm just taking a look at all the tasks that were created on this contact center from and to within this date range. And I'm telling it, this is all the information that I want in that response. I know that if you've used some of our REST APIs, there might be data that's coming across that you don't really need. And if you don't need it, you can actually just take it out of the GraphQL search. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the run here and execute. All right, great. So this actually provided us data. Here's some tasks that came in. Taking a look at, if you want to look, a phone call was placed into our entry point and placed into the queue. So we're good to go. Our GraphQL is working as expected. This wasn't possible previously on our previous portal, on the Webex for Developers portal, but it was on the contact center side. Now that we've merged, we've got that functionality on both sides. And like as Phil was talking about, we do have that create section as well. So these are things that span across many different use cases and products. specifically like authentication, talking about how to OAuth with our APIs, log in with WebEx. We've got our bots, we've got our embedded apps. We have, it's service apps, which is huge. If you tuned into our webinar last month, you can you'll know all about service apps. If you didn't, we do have the recording up on our portal. And actually, those recordings live underneath the resources side. So if you go on the resources, this might be how many of you register for this webinar. But if not, if you register with a different link, know that you can get to our webinars through the resources tab at the top. We go to our webinars. Here's some things that are upcoming webinars. And then here's our on-demand. So these are our previously recorded. So if you expand them, they're all hosted on Vidcast. You can watch them directly within the browser or go over to Vidcast and watch them from there. Other thing I want to call out on the create side is the ability for sandboxes. Since we do have multiple products, we do have a bunch of different types of sandboxes that you can get. So if you're looking at building something for your company and you don't want to use production data, you don't want to get a call like I have from Cisco IT for trying to implement something within their production org, use a sandbox. I promise you it'll be worth it. So we have our suite sandboxes. We've got our contact center sandboxes. Contact center sandboxes are great because those come with a couple of different phone numbers, queues, and everything all set up for you to get started testing with contact center. Those do not last as long as the regular suite sandboxes. And then finally, we also have our guest-to-guest sandboxes. So if you're building on guest-to-guests and you need to get that product added to a sandbox, this is a sandbox for you to start trying out. There's also some things. We also have quite a few tutorials that were hidden within the last portal, but now are brought to your attention here on the create side. You want to walk through some of our tutorials. They are on here as well. And finally, on the tour, we do have our Webex App Hub that we want you to submit your app for all of our Webex users to use. You want to learn about what the process is submitting your app to App Hub, how to go about making sure that you don't go back and forth with our App Hub approval team. This is the page for you to take a look at. It's got information about what the actual review process is, how to go about submitting to the Webex App Hub, and the different guidelines, and even the things that are the things about the description. But there one thing on here I did want to call out is that we've got information about specific integrations and embedded apps for different products have different requirements for submission in the App Hub. All that information lives here on that page. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Phil. Okay. Unless there's something else that I may have missed that we want to call out.
Well, I think we can always get back to it if we need to. Yeah, I think that was everything I was expecting. So thank you.
All right.
So now in this next section, I'm actually going to bring in our Webex design leader, Athena Perez. She's going to shed some light on the strategy that was employed to make a better and more intuitive developer experience. So, everybody can get a better idea of, why we did some of these changes. So, Athena, without further ado.
Hello, thank you, Phil. Thank you, Adam. Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Athena, and I am the design lead for Developer Experience, Developer Platform, and I would, I definitely have to call out the whole team that worked on this. Sadesh Cast, Sahan, John F. is on the call, Adam R. from engineering. It takes a village, of course, and they did all of the hard work. So props to them. Let's dive right in. All right, this quote really captures the foundation of the work that I'm going to walk through today quickly. We needed a system that could scale with the platform, but still feel intuitive and efficient, right? So I'm walking through how UX played a role in shaping the system, from the structural framework to the small details that reduce the friction and build confidence for you, the user. This presentation builds on the themes in the behind the docs block post that Phil referenced earlier. It's on the blog section of the website. So if you wanted to read that, please go check that out. Next slide, please. So to understand why this redesign was necessary, we went back to what we were hearing from users, naturally, as a user experience designer. These are just a few quotes, and they came up often. People couldn't find what they needed. They didn't understand how things were grouped, and users felt lost between products. And just to name one example of accessibility for screen reader users, the structure was very, very broken. And so these issues, they're not just aesthetic, right? They indicate a much deeper need to rethink the information architecture and not just patch it. Next slide, please. Let's talk about our principles. So we needed a baseline and to guide our decisions within this redesign. So we looked at our pain points and translated them into what you're seeing here. We have findability, helping users get to the right content faster. Taxonomy, structuring information in a way that aligns with how our products actually work together and how our users think, not just how we're organized internally. If you work in corporate, you know. If you know, you know. Scalability, we needed a structure that could grow with the platform, right? So as products are added in, as features are added, we need to be able to scale with that and support complexity without breaking. Accessibility, because good design has to work for everyone. And as has been mentioned on this call so far, accessibility is very important to Cisco. So we take this very seriously on the design side. And so these, like I had mentioned, grounded every decision we made from the beginning of the project. So let's test. Next slide, please, Phil. Let's test who was paying attention. We have to join the quiz. All right, click join on Slido. Phil, do we see a question?
There we go.
Here we go. All right. So if users are saying things like, I can't find what I'm looking for, where am I? And not in the existential realm, more so, where am I within the website? Which of our principles that I mentioned last slide would address these types of questions? I have to rejoin. So I joined initially and I had to rejoin after the question was launched. So Phil, in this Slido quiz, people submit and then we just end it and then it shows answers?
Yeah, and then we can pop up the right answer as soon as we're ready.
Okay, cool. Right on. All right, we'll give it a few more seconds. I can't find what I'm looking for. Where am I? Who am I?
What am I doing?
All right, let's see what we got. What am I doing? Help me. All right, findability, taxonomy. Those are both very good answers, and the right one is findability. Yay. Right. So if users feel like they're lost or can't locate what they need, we're missing the mark on the UX side. This was a major signal for us that our content structure wasn't working and we needed to rethink from the ground up. Next slide, please. So let's talk about findability in terms of examples and how we solution some of those questions we saw. Who am I? Where am I? To improve our findability, we focused on how people search and orient themselves, not just how our org chart is structured. Again, we improved headers. We created a component from our design system. So this makes it consistent on every page that has a topic header. It looks the same. This helps users scan quickly with consistent, predictable formatting. We added a left nav, as Adam showed for us, and improved tagging. So our global search is more accurate and relevant. Engineering took the initiative and lead on the left nav. So props to them on that one. Arun, great work there. We added breadcrumbs. So this is great because it supports wayfinding. So you can always know where you are and you can easily get back. So these might seem small, but they but they do compound into a significantly smoother experience. And these are all baseline for UX. So we're very excited that these were able to be addressed. All right, next slide, please. Scalability. All right, this is our next principle, and this was important because we needed to design a system that can grow with us, that can grow with Webex, that can grow with Cisco. We created a repeatable information architecture that makes it easier to navigate across products. You'll see on the left in these screenshots I have here, the previous structure, hey, it worked, but it didn't scale well or support discovery across products or groupings in an intuitive way. Now, with the shared pattern and the consistent layout, we've reduced cognitive load and made it easier for users and our internal teams to maintain and expand and grow. This gives us room to evolve without losing clarity. So we're excited about this scalability principle and some of these global navigation, as you can see in the left nav. Very cool. All right, next test. Next quiz, I should say. Get ready. All right, who is paying attention to our principles? We have another Slido question. All right, if I'm hearing comments, if you're hearing comments like, I don't know which product this belongs to, the left nav, let's say, or if I'm saying, why is the same thing listed under two different sections? What principle would address these types of questions? All right, we'll give it a few more seconds. All right, what have we got, Phil?
Let's see.
Take it away, Phil.
Looks like
Taxonomy.
Let's see.
Ding, ding,
Yeah.
All right, cool. So these kinds of questions show a breakdown in how we organize and label our content. So if people don't know where something belongs, or worse, if it shows up the same way in multiple places, it's a taxonomy or a grouping issue. Getting our taxonomy right is key to helping y'all make sense of these complex systems without second guessing yourself, right? So let's remove that friction and put it on ourselves. Oh, we have a Phil.
Oh.
Believe it or not. Ow.
I think
Cool.
I cheated.
Yeah.
Cheater.
All right, I'll collect my prize later.
DQ. All right. Let's see. Let's move on and dive into taxonomy. All right. This is, as again, how we create a clear path to what matters. So when labeling and our structure are inconsistent, we're basically putting roadblocks in the path of our users. You're left guessing. Is this a guide? Is it a reference? Does this apply to calling, messaging? Or what if I need to work on contact center? It's not clear. So by defining these consistent patterns, like as you saw in the walkthrough with Adam, overview, guides, reference, keeping these consistent across every product, every grouping, we basically are helping users build intuition and confidence in what they're seeing. And just as importantly, when internal teams use the same language, our entire experience becomes easier to scale and maintain. It means less time reinventing and more time building. And when I say internally, I mean, what do we call our global navigation? What do we call our second level, our third level, our fourth level? We have to ensure that we're speaking the same language so we know what we're talking about. We have confidence in and can quickly come up with our solutions and create language for the whole team. All right, next slide, please, sir. All right, we're at accessibility. Now, this definitely wasn't an afterthought here. It was a core part of the process from day one. And within the design organization overall, this is a massive, massive set of work that has been put in place to ensure it is a part of the process from day one. We started by partnering with experts at Applause to do real world testing, because automated tools can really only do so much, but their feedback helped us fix blockers before we launched. So we were able to come up with our specs for engineers at handoff, right? We have built accessibility into the design system itself, so components are automatically accessible. Proper contrast, structure, interaction patterns, and you can see in these screenshots, it might be a little hard to see, but focus and tab order we spell out for our engineers. Heading labels and code we spell out for our engineers. So the screen reader is naturally set up for success. So we're very grateful for Applause and their help in that, and for the whole of the team and org for taking on this work, because accessibility should be is a top priority for us. So next slide, please. And that's a quick look at how we've been approaching this redesign. Every improvement you'd see today maps back to one of these UX principles. And listen, we know that nothing is perfect. We're working on supplemental phases to improve upon not only new features, but improve what you've seen today. We're excited to continue improving, and we love feedback. So evangelists, if you have the best way to provide feedback, I look to you, because I know we have a great beta program. We took a lot of this feedback from our beta program for the Converged portal. So I encourage you to participate in beta moving forward, and thanks for following along. Happy to be here. Happy to answer questions. And again, we love constructive feedback, so please send it along.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Athena. So we're going to move on to, I think, the cool part of this, real cool part of this, new offerings, which is the Cisco AI Assistant for Webex developers. So we're thrilled to introduce the Cisco AI Assistant for Webex developers. It's now available to all signed in users on developer.webex.com. But just real quick, as we're kind of getting into this, what is the most time-consuming activity while building a Webex integration? So for those of you who have built something already, what do you think is like the most time-consuming part of building it? I know, one of the things that comes to mind is like maybe when you're building an integration, maybe it's the first time you're building an OAuth grant flow, inside of an integration. We always get a lot of questions around that. Perhaps maybe just researching the APIs, it is time consuming, trying to figure out which ones I'm actually going to need to implement inside there. What are some of the things? Yeah, debugging. That's I think probably I figured that'd be the biggest one. Figuring how to build the first one. Yep, it's always, the first step is always the hardest, right? But then once you do it, kind of builds that confidence. Yep, OAuth tokens, knowing where to start. Yeah, these are very, very common things here. Got a couple more people putting in here. Finding API payloads and responses. Exactly. How am I gonna parse those? So I'm gonna know what format they come in. What are the key value pairs? All right. Good answers all the way around. But to help with some of these more challenging aspects, the Cisco AI Assistant on the Webex Developer Portal. It's an intelligent chat tool powered by a large language model, or an LLM, and it helps Webex Contact Center and Webex Suite developers build integrations and applications faster and easier than ever before. So the AI Assistant offers different layout options, multiple ways to customize generated code output, and collaborative features to help you achieve your desired results. It also provides links to relevant documentation and guides, making it easy to verify the information it provides. But since it's always best to see it in action to get the full picture, let's jump back over to the developer portal for a demo of the AI Assistant with Adam. Adam, you ready? Adam, you still with us? I think you're on mute.
Hey, you're on mute. The favorite topic that everyone says.
Okay, let me get past this here.
There we go.
Got it? All right.
All right. So before I jump into that, I do want to clarify. I misspoke when I was doing the earlier tour. The change logs are specific to suite and customer experience. They're not broken down by calling, meetings, and messaging. So I just want to clarify that. I did miss a couple of things that we wanted to call out too. Obviously, as Phil mentioned at the top of the call during the news section, we do have a blog with all of our content on here. So the blog is one of the big topics up at the top header here. So you can go into the blog, subscribe to our RSS feed for the most up-to-date announcements on the blogs. Also, I can't believe I did this. But I forgot to mention our developer support team. So developer support at the top, very top of that portal. We have our community support, and we also have our developer support team that answers all of your questions for you. So we're available for those questions to come in through a request or an email. Don't forget about the developer support team.
Yeah, and that's
you
not
get
new,
stuck-
by the way. We've been doing this a
Right.
long time with our support team. So
Yeah. So apologies to that team. Yeah, I didn't mean to skip over that. But yeah, so let's take a look at the AI assistant that we've got here. So what I want to do first is I want to first show the documentation ability for it. So I just want to say, if maybe I didn't tune into last month's webinar about service apps, I'm just going to say, explain Webex service apps and what they are used for. So once again, we will cross our fingers to the demo gods, make our sacrifices of tabs and semicolons. So we're generating an answer here. Webex service apps are specialized applications designed for mission critical. Woo, never mind. I was trying to read it, but yes. Summarize everything that it has from the documentation portal, gives us information about Webex service apps, and then also gives us links to those documentations as well. So if you want to take a look at it, mark it thumbs up, thumbs down. Our engineering team, if it's not helpful, we're constantly making updates to this LLM. So we can, it's great for those types of queries where you're just asking questions about the documentation. But what I wanted to do today, I think we've got maybe about 5 minutes. I'm going to try to do the coding assistant functionality for the AI assistant. So I'm going to start a new thread here. While I'm copying over this, because I'm not going to type all this out, I'm just going to copy it over. But what I thought would be fun was, for those developers that have been with us a while, you may have remembered our building a bot webinar we did, where we built a bot that fetched Bitcoin prices and sent it to a user. Instead of building it, I'm just going to have AI Assistant build that for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask it to, let me expand this a little bit so you can see what I'm asking. If I can grab the right button. Maybe I won't. Create a script that will fetch the current price of Bitcoin from CoinGecko and send it via direct message using a user's email formatted as an adaptive card via Webex messaging. Load variables from the environment using the .env package. So obviously I gave it a little finagling to make sure it gets me the answer I want. You can get started with a much more basic question, but since I'm trying to get this demo out and running within 5 minutes, I'm kind of giving a little extra prompt engineering here when I send this.
Yeah, but I think being specific is usually a best practice when you're using these type of tools. Try to be as specific as you possibly can. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see what it builds for us. I've got my Visual Studio Code ready to go, waiting for the assistant. So here we go. It's generating this code. And then it summarizes what it actually did for me, tell me that it's using the Webex messages endpoint, define a function to fetch from CoinGecko. Couple things I wanted to showcase just on the code generator is that we've got some options where we can add some annotations or simplify the code. We can ask it to regenerate. You can even select these things and ask it to change something directly within those lines of code. Pretty great, but let me just a quick scan, making sure everything looks good here.
Wait, am I missing a semicolon? Oh no, it's there. Okay.
Everything looks good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the code. What you can also do, if you don't have it ready, you can have it download the file, the JavaScript file directly to your desktop, or you can have it send it to someone or send it to yourself if you'd like. You can send it to you within WebEx. I'm not going to do that here. You're going to go over here and I'm going to create a Bitcoin script, paste it in, take a look at the environment variables. I know all you guys are sneaky, so I'm not going to share my environment variable with you. So you can't use my token, but I'm going to make sure that this is I had the right thing in my environment. So access token looks good. Person email, I'm going to have it send to myself. All right, the tokens are in. And let's save it. And I'm going to try to just run it and see what happens. Oh, it looks like it went through. I got a sound on my WebEx. I've got a new message. And
oh man,
take a look at that. This is what I just received. Bitcoin price alert. Current price of Bitcoin is it's way too high for what I've already sold my Bitcoin at. So that's all I have to say about that. But yeah, so if we want to say, you know what, I want to use, let's change this to a space ID instead. Change this to send to a space ID. And send. And you see it's created a separate version when it's generating. And hopefully this will come out here shortly so we can get to our Q&A. I won't test it out, but I'll just show you that it actually is doing it. Look, see the code that generated, it changed it over to a space ID and everything else. Looks like it's pretty much stayed the same. But yeah, so now you can you can tweak your code in here and get it ready to go. So that 45-minute building a bot webinar, it was done now in less than 5 minutes. So that's a couple of other features. One of the show we've got, so it's in a floating window mode here. We can move it over to the side if you want to show it in a docked view, or you can pop it out and make it full screen. All right, I guess that wraps up the demo of the AI assistant for our portal.
Hey, successful demo. I love it. On our side today. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and just wrap things up. Just put up some resources here for you to check out, so you can keep up with all the latest updates. As Adam mentioned before, about our Webex App Hub. Again, that's our site that enables anybody to share their integrations and bots with the rest of the Webex community. It is continually getting new listings from third-party integrators, so be sure to check there often to see what's there. Our Webex Developer Community Forum, that was actually the first to unify Webex and Contact Center content together. So this is where you can go to ask questions or join a discussion on anything related to either platform. All of our support engineers are in there, other Webex engineers, the larger community. So, please encourage everybody to go check that out too. Good place to start, before maybe opening up a support ticket, see if we can, find some answers there. But we also have our Webex GitHub repos that include our SDKs, a bunch of code samples, demo applications. So maybe before you even start building or anything like that, go check out what we have as far as our samples go. And with that, we have some questions, right?
Yep, we do.
All right, I'm pulling it up here. All right, so question 1 here from Christopher. Is there a way to get a permanent token without building an integration for something simple, like a daily CDR pull called detail report pull, even just a 30 or 90 day? What do you think about a service app for that one, Adam?
Yeah, well, even with the service app, those tokens do expire. So you can't. There's no quick permanent token besides a WebEx bot, but those WebEx bots are very limited to the functionality. We do recommend, if you're going to be using it for something more than just 1 or 2 times that you're doing from the developer portal, to build that integration and have those things ready to go.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I mentioned service apps is because usually that's a really good use case for it. Daily, you want to pull on your reports. So it's an administrator task. So the thing is, it works a lot like an integration in that it uses an access token and a refresh token. But if you're pulling daily reports, essentially, that refresh token, will keep it going in perpetuity. So
yeah.
So it's almost like a permanent one as long as it keeps running, but
yeah.
but it's a really good use case.
You're still required to use that refresh token to update that access token when it expires. So yeah, there's no sorts that thing more as a permanent token,
right,
on WebEx.
Yeah, so that's the distinction there. It's not quite permanent, but when you build it in, as far as that goes, it almost feels like it is. But yeah, that was a good question, though. The next question from Carl. Are integrations cross-platform too now? Will integrations have scopes available that can enable it to interact with WebEx calling and Webex Contact Center, for example? And
so yeah, when you're creating integrations on the new Converged portal, it has scopes for WebEx calling, messaging, meetings, and contact center. So you can have an integration that has multiple scopes across those products. Really excited to see that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the.
Don't have to go to multiple portals and create multiple integrations. You can have one that has all the scopes that you need.
Yeah, I know that's a big one as far as converging the two. And then finally from Rajneesh, is there a preference on which programming language to use with AI Assistant? Perhaps Python? I know Python's pretty popular in Cisco. But
So that's one thing I skipped over that, is that you can prompt it to give you the code in Python as well. I believe as of now it's JavaScript and Python are the 2 supported languages within that coding assistant. So that's so you can just ask it to give you the code in Python and it will do it.
Yeah,
I think it defaults to JavaScript if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but I know we have a lot of Python enthusiasts, so it's definitely part of it. Okay, well, I think we made it, huh? Right at the top of the hour
coming in.
Yeah, but yeah, again, thank you so much for joining today's session. Hopefully we all learned some things. But if you have any other questions that come up in the future, just feel free to reach out to us or our awesome support team. We're always happy to help. But we'll have the recording available on our developer portal shortly, and then we also share the slides inside of the community forums too. So you can go over there to check out if you want to check out the slides. But with that, I think we're set. But until next time, thank you, and we'll see you.
Thank you, everybody.